Hello everybody, it's me the Boss Hog, otherwise known as Liam, and today we're going to be looking at my week's performance, stocks I've been buying, stocks I've been selling, and dividends I've received. It wasn't a particularly great week, as you can see. Actually, in terms of capital growth or loss, really, last week it was at 1.5k, pretty gross. I was ahead for the month by over £1,000, so month to date now is minus 442. This is actually the first week I've had where I literally had every day was loss making, as you can see here. And it just was pretty bad, to be honest with you. My UK shares especially really struggled, as we'll see in a second, in terms of my worst performing. But yeah, it wasn't great. I do continue to add £160 a day across two ISAs, so these are tax advantaged savings accounts or investment accounts, I suppose. Also as well, I basically emptied my cash position, which is why this week, instead of being £800 added, it's 3.3k. So basically a couple of thousand added for a few shares, which we'll touch on in just a second. Dividends was a pretty solid week, honestly, just a smidge under 35 quid. Quite happy with that for a single week. You can see it broken down there. Yeah, all of these are in my wife's ISA, so in the end, after currency translation, that 34.80 worked out at 34.78, and my plan with my wife's ISA is to put all of the dividends into Johnson & Johnson, which is what I did, and the plan for my own ISA is to put everything into Lockheed Martin, which I have been doing but didn't have any this week. That's really just because I expect both companies to be around for decades, and when I get to retire or in the future, I hope to just look at these holdings that I have in LMT and J&J and think to myself, wow, that's awesome, I didn't put any of my own capital into that, and here are reasonably good stakes in both of those companies. So that's the plan moving forward. Okay, so yeah, not a great week at all. I can't sugarcoat it in any way. I hope it recovers, and let's see what I've been buying on my fairly substantial dips. Alright, so in terms of what I've been buying here, you can see National Express and Genius Sports are out ahead. National Express, I believe it has a fair value, probably about 350, 360. I put the full range here, and the reason for the range is because there's a few unknowns at the moment. They have a company update at the end of July, so I'm going to be following that, and may well review it on the channel, actually. If anyone's interested in that, let me know. But honestly, I think National Express is being seen incorrectly as a COVID stock, and I kind of get why. Obviously, it's impacted by COVID and everything else, but a significant amount of its revenues, more than half, is state-backed and guaranteed. They've renegotiated quite a few of their contracts to now be more about the mileage of the journey rather than passenger numbers, so again, that's going to help in any kind of depressed environment. They've been buying businesses, improving their business, and as a result of that, their earnings are now running ahead of where they were a year ago. So I just think that even though revenue hasn't fully recovered, I do expect earnings to kind of bring everything up. And they've also paid down a significant amount of debt as well. They do still have a reasonable amount, but I have no concerns there. So I've been buying National Express super heavy on a continued slide, basically, just because I think it's my most undervalued holding. So I guess I'm going to back that with £1,000. Genius had a significant pullback. So this had been up to about $24 just a month or so ago. It did go down to 19 because they had a share placing, and then it kept going down. So I sort of bought $15.50, I think, which to me just was really quite cheap. Again, I've said previously I think this company's in the low 20s. I still maintain that. So I actually sold half my Apple stock, as you'll see in just a second, to free up some cash for that. It's in my wife's ISA, whereas EPD I added 40 on a bit of a dip. Also, this is slightly vanity, because I really wanted to add 40 to have 310 shares, and then that would give me a projected £100 a quarter dividend from my EPD holding, but I'm happy to own it as well. And again, they have a company update at the end of the month also, and I'm considering doing a review on EPD, which is still a holding that I liked, at least last I looked, last quarter. And Huntington Bank shares, again, I just think it's a real steal under $14. I have a $17.20 price here, and Huntsman Corporation likewise, less extreme for both of these, but I've been adding those as well. Full list there is on the left. I've just gone through the top 5 to try and keep this reasonably condensed, and if anyone has any questions about the others, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to address it. All right, so a small list of what I've been selling this week. We'll start with Games Workshop. I still like Games Workshop. They've had a bit of a run up. I sold out for like 27% profit, something like that. But I only sold 3 of my 26 shares because I do still think it's a high quality business. And that was just because I wanted some more capital for National Express. Apple I've already touched on, 25% profit. I do still have 15 shares in Apple, but I just wanted a fairly chunky capital, and I'd already put all of my money into National Express, and in fairness it was sitting in a different investment account, so I couldn't easily transfer it over with my brokerage, so I decided to average down quite aggressively with my Genius. Now got that down to under 18. I think it's like 17.70 is my average share price, which again I'm pretty delighted with, honestly, so that's great from my perspective. And Tellus, I did actually buy 4 Tellus. You might have seen it on the other thing, but I sold 14. This was just toward the end of the week. Tellus I think is more or less fairly valued, but I think it's a good quality stock to hold in the long run, so I've been sort of following it up, and I just decided to free up some funds for EPD, just so I could get to the additional 40 shares that I wanted to. And again, EPD yields 7%. I know it's an MLP, but for me as a Brit, I don't have any tax on MLPs, and I don't have to do the K1 form either. My brokerage takes care of that, so for me actually it being an MLP is an advantage, and I like EPD, so that was my rationale for selling, but not a huge week actually in terms of sales, and all of them is just to free up money to buy other stuff. Alright, so different format this week, just to try and keep this video under 10 minutes is the plan. So Genius, I think I've already touched on. My stake after adding, the sale of 15 Apple shares is now 2.5k. It was down 17% on the week for no obvious reason as far as I can work out. I have had a look into all of these, including Genius. And yeah, I can kind of understand the previous fallback to 19, maybe even 18 following the share placing, but this I don't really understand, so I decided to back my horse. GAN, I haven't averaged down on this since I sold some Carnival shares after their last quarterly update, when it was showing some promise. I still think GAN has some problems as a business, and I'm really waiting for the next quarterly update. It does have a habit of decreasing in preparation of that, and hopefully this is just more of the same, so I haven't actually added any more to GAN on the dip. The last time I did buy GAN shares, it was for about this level, and I just think my holding is large enough for what's effectively a risky play here at about 2% of my portfolio. Then National Express here, which I think is my 4th largest holding currently, it's down 9% on the week. That 9% works out about 500 quid. I think it's about 540 actually. My holding currently is 5.1k, and yeah, I mean I've spent a lot of time recently looking at National Express. I still don't really understand. I think it's all sentiment driven effectively, and I don't even think it's particularly smartly sentiment driven. Like some things like cinemas you might be able to understand, and again I can understand why travel would be impacted, but I just don't think that people have had, and maybe analysts, I don't know, and I know, so it's weird because I feel a bit insecure being the only person apparently who still rates National Express, but again I haven't seen any reason to not buy it at sort of 260, 250, 240, so I just keep adding to it in the hope and expectation that it's going to be in a mid 300s type share in a not too distant future. So for me, I just have to have the confidence and back it, and hope that goes well at this stage. There were some good performers, but honestly they were few and far between, and Danaher here, which is a kind of an AI testing automation pharmacy type company, so what's that, like pharma health, yeah, I don't know how I'd group that really. It's a tech company anyway in the pharma sphere. It's actually pretty cool. I don't have a massive holding in it, but it rose 3%, and I say I don't have a massive, I mean it's about just under 2% of my portfolio, so it's not tiny either. And yeah, I quite like the company. I kind of want to find a buying opportunity, but I haven't yet found one to add. Microsoft, can't go wrong with Microsoft. It is one of my larger holdings. I think it still is in the top 10. I'm confident it's in the top 10. Up 1%. Again, I would happily buy more Microsoft shares if given the chance. And Apple as well, up 1%. I still have a 1.6k holding. I was at 3.1, and then I sold 1.5k for my Genius purchase. But I'm happy to hold Apple. I still think it's a quality company. It just run up, and now I sort of expect it to trade sideways or maybe have a bit of a pullback. And again, given the opportunity, I would consider buying this again. I probably will actually look to buy Apple. So yeah, these are my best free and worst free for the week. Like I say, not a great week, down 1.5k on the week, and as a result of that, now down £400 on the month. It is what it is. Sometimes with investing, you can't win them all, and I'm trying to look positively to the future and assume and hope that I've picked up some good shares on the dip. So that's everything from me this week. I've been the Boss Hog, and good luck with your investing. Thanks, everyone.